Hi guys, this is Bison and today I am going to show you one of the most brutal and mind-blowing games ever played in chess history. This is the game 10 played in 2017 between AlphaZero, the revolutionary chess engine which was created by Google DeepMind, and Stockfish 8, which at the time was considered one of the strongest chess engine in the world. In total, 100 games were played between these two engines and the result was shocking. AlphaZero won 28 games, drew 72 and did not lose even a single game. This legendary battle was suggested by one of our subscriber chess lover, and guys, trust me, this is not a normal chess game. AlphaZero sacrifices material like it doesn't even matter, ignores classical chess principles, and launches a devastating king hunt that feel completely out of this world. So make sure to watch till the end because this game will seriously change the way you look at the chess. Okay, so basically this game starts with the queen's Indian defense and this is the classical variation by white. And in this position here Stockfish castled and now here AlphaZero continues with d5. He basically sacrificed a pawn and the logic behind this move is to shut the diagonal of the black bishop on b7 and to gain a tempo for development. And here Stockfish captured on d5 and now AlphaZero goes for a weird move which is knight to h4, which is basically a great move because first of all here white wants to bring this knight to d5 which will be a very strong outpost for this knight, and secondly you can see now the diagonal of this bishop on g2 is opened which creates pressure over this central d5 pawn, and basically this complete setup is known as Polugavisky gambit, and since this d5 pawn is attacked so that's why c6, and after that AlphaZero captured on d5, knight takes d5, and since this knight is attacked so that's why knight to f5, and you can see by sacrificing the pawn white ends up with this powerful knight on f5 which also creating pressure over the bishop on e7, and now it's really hard for black to break the to play the d5 brick. So yeah, this pawn sacrifice actually gives white a lot of control, and since now white can anytime you can see now white can anytime go for e4, so that's why here Stockfish brings this knight back to c7, and you can see now what is coming next. And you can see that by this exchange, white gets an open e-file where he can place this rook in future. Okay, so after that, knight to c3, developing this knight, knight takes c3, and before recapturing the knight, queen to g4 by AlphaZero, threatening mate in 1, and to defend this, bishop to f6 might be the best option, which also guards this bishop from the range of this knight. But instead, he goes for the move g6, and this move is considered good by Stockfish because it not only targets this knight but also obviously prevents mate. Stockfish considered this position as equal, but from the perspective of AlphaZero, this move fairly weakens the dark square around the king, specifically the h6 and f6 square. And with the bishop on g2, which is the dragon bishop slicing down this long diagonal, and you can see this h pawn is ready to march, and the black king is going to get into trouble, and since this knight is attacked so that's why knight to h6 check, king to g7, and here AlphaZero finally captured this knight. Okay, so in this position, Stockfish goes for queen to d6, asking for queen exchange, which obviously white can't accept. This is because let's suppose if queen takes d6, bishop takes d6, and at the end you can see black ends up with this strong queenside pawn structure, whereas white has this isolated pawn on c3, and by all of this you can see this position will be winning for black. So that's why after the move queen to d6, here AlphaZero just slides this queen to a4. Here AlphaZero placed this queen on a4, which is an active square because it eyes the queen side, and it can anytime swing back to the king side via 4th rank or the d file if black creates any threat to the king. And now basically it is acting like a pivot piece. And Stockfish now pushed g5, which is a really great move, closing that diagonal of this dark square bishop so that it cannot defend this knight. And you can see now this knight is very close to getting trapped. So it has only one square left, which is, let's suppose, knight to g4. But guys, if this happens, now comes f5, attacking this knight again. And let's suppose if knight to e3, but now comes f4, attacking this knight again. And obviously white, and you can see that since this is attacked, so white has to move, let's suppose, on knight to c4. And since this queen is attacked, so that's why queen to f6. And now suddenly you can see black pieces gets more active. And here black is successful in launching an kingside attack. And yeah, I know all of you are thinking about the move which is knight takes b6, which attacks this rook, and black has to lose this rook. But after takes, queen takes a8. But guys, what about the move bishop to a6, which attacks this rook as well as trapping this queen? And let's suppose if white defends this rook on e1, now f takes g3, and now the move f3 is recommended because black is now threatening to capture on f2. So that's why f3. And guys, now I just want you all to pause the video and try to find what black can play in this position. And guys, if you find the move which is queen takes c3, then congratulations, you are a genius, because now this queen is targeting both rooks. And yeah, I know what you are thinking about this check, which is rook takes e7, but king to g8, and finally rook to b1, and everything is well protected. But guys, now comes this check, queen to c5, and after this king moves, queen takes e7, h takes g3, rook to d8. And you can see here black can continue this attack, whereas white has to be careful, or I can say white has to be defensive, because if he makes any single mistake, then this will be over for white. So in the actual game, after the move, yeah, let me go back, which is the move g5. Uh, so uh, so basically AlphaZero knew this very well. So that's why in this position he sacrificed his knight by the move rook to e1. And this sacrifice reminds us of Mikhail Tal. And basically in this, AlphaZero gets the spirit of Mikhail Tal. And as I told you earlier, the idea behind the move g5 is that Stockfish expects that white will try to save this knight, and by that black can take advantage of it by improving its position, which I already showed you earlier. So that's why AlphaZero knows that this knight is not worthy to save, and instead he brings his rook on the e file. Okay, so after that, simply Stockfish captured on h6, and yes, he also knew that capturing this knight on h6 also displaces this king. So that's why now he goes for the move h4, trying to capture the pawn so that black king gets fully opened. So Stockfish defends it with f6 and bishop to e3. And another great move by AlphaZero, which opens the d file for this a1 rook. And white can now anytime go for rook to d1, as well as white is also threatening bishop takes b7, taking benefit of this pinned pawn. And now bishop to b5, keeping an eye over this strong diagonal, but AlphaZero goes according to his plan. He attacks this queen by rook at a goes to d1. And guys, now you can see this queen has only two safe squares where it can go, which is first of all the c7 square and secondly the a3 square. Here the queen cannot go to this e file due to the threat of bishop takes g5 check, and black has to lose this queen. So let's suppose first of all if this queen goes to which is let's suppose on c7, that will be a huge mistake because of this next move which white is going to play, bishop to e4. And I know all of you be like, bro, what kind of move is this? And let's suppose if white captured this bishop by bishop takes e4, simply queen takes e4, and basically now this queen is the most active piece for white, which is ready to rip off the black king. And here the move g7, king to g7 is recommended for black. I mean, let's suppose if black is not careful and he goes for any move like let's suppose rook to f7, then simply h takes g5 check, f takes g5, queen to h4 check, taking benefit of this pinned pawn. And after this king goes to g7, bishop takes g5. And let's suppose if this king goes back to f8, bishop to h6 check, king to e8, queen to g4. And I don't need to tell you what is going to happen with black. And let's suppose after the move bishop takes g5, if black decides to exchange this bishop, now this is completely lost for black. This is because of queen takes g5 check, king to f8, queen to h6 check, rook to g7, queen to f6 check, rook to f7, and finally, yes, you are right, queen to h8 will be checkmate. So that's why in the actual game, after rook at a goes to d1, yeah, which is this move. So after seeing this all complications, here Stockfish goes for the move queen to a3, asking for queen exchange, which is obviously bad for white because as you can see, white is already material down, so exchanging the queen will not make any sense. So that's why he brings this queen to c4. And here Stockfish made a mistake by b5, attacking this queen again. And guys, uh, again, this move is considered best by Stockfish. He basically wants to disrupt the white coordination so that he can create some counterplay. But in reality, this move is a mistake because with b5, you can see it also opens the diagonal of also opens the line on the queen side, as well as it gives this strong diagonal to this bishop. Okay guys, so in this position, after this king goes to g6, queen to h1. And guys, this is arguably the second most brilliant move of this game. Instead of continuing to check or either to capture the any pawn, this queen retreats to the corner of the board, and basically white is preparing to go for bishop to e4, targeting this bishop, and basically he wants to bring this king into the center. So after seeing all of this, here Stockfish brings his king to g7. Okay, so now queen to h3, and white can anytime bring this queen to e6. Okay, so here bishop to f6 by Stockfish, targeting this c3 pawn. Okay, so rook to h1, threatening mate in 1. So to stop this, queen to g8. And guys, now comes the another brilliant move of this game, which is c4. And basically this move is especially played to block the queen from accessing the fourth rank or the diagonal later in the game. And let's suppose if black captured on c4 by b takes c4, now comes this amazing move f4, attacking this king side structure. And if takes, queen to h6 check, king to f7, queen takes f4, and in the next move this check is coming, and yup, that's all. So that's why after the move c4, here Stockfish goes for rook to e8, creating another escaping square for the king, as well as bringing this rook into the e file. And here now the AlphaZero continues with the bishop to d4. He basically wants to exchange this active bishop, and which Stockfish simply captured. And by all of this, you can see now black king is in huge trouble. And so that's why here Stockfish goes for rook to d8. He basically wants to exchange much piece as possible. And now queen to e6, preparing for this check. So to stop this, knight to d7 by Stockfish. And here you can see uh, here black can capture on c4, but simply king to c6, c takes b5, c takes b5, king to f3, knight to d4 check, king to e4, attacking this knight. So that's why knight to c6, defending the a7 pawn. And here AlphaZero goes for rook to c8. He attacks this knight again. So that's why knight to e7, attacking this rook. Rook to b8, knight to f5. And obviously here white cannot capture on b5 due to the threat of knight to d6 fork. So that's why he goes for g4. He attacks this knight again, knight to h6, attacking this pawn. So that's why f3. AlphaZero defends this. Knight to f7, rook to a8, attacking this pawn. So, but before that, knight to d6 check, king to d5, knight to c4, rook takes a7, knight to e3 check, king to e4, knight to c4, rook to a6 check, king to g7, rook to c6, king to f7, rook to c5, and we all know it's just a matter of time. King to e6, rook takes g5, king to f6, rook to c5, g5. And in this position, the final move by AlphaZero is king to d4. And in this position, Stockfish 8 resigned. What an amazing game, guys. What an amazing game by AlphaZero. Like this video, and I will see you in the next one. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.